Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Susan Craighead with the League of Women Voters of Naperville. The League of Women Voters has more than 3 decades of policy and action on gun violence prevention. The League's impact on issues, the League's Guide to Public Policy states, the League of Women Voters of the United States believes that the proliferation of handguns and semi-automatic assault weapons in the United States is a major health and safety threat to its citizens. The League supports strong federal measures to limit the accessibility and regulate the ownership of these weapons by private citizens. The League supports regulating firearms for consumer safety. This position was begun by the League of Women Voters of Highland Park in 1990. Now, decades later, the federal assault weapons ban has lapsed, and Highland Park was the site of the most recent, a recent mass shooting. As Naperville considers a municipal ordinance to ban the sale of assault weapons, we are pleased to present tonight Jim McGrath, the Illinois League Issues Specialist for Gun Violence Prevention. Please put your questions in the chat and we'll answer them at the end. And if you're not on mute, please mute yourselves. Jim?
Thank you, Susan, and thank you for reading the position statement. I really appreciate that. Let me get this presentation going here. I appreciate everybody joining tonight. Okay, there we go. So, I'm the Gun Violence Prevention Issue Specialist. Here's my email. And what I would like to do is, if anybody, this is the way I get information. If you find something about gun violence that you are concerned about, send me an email so I can look into it and maybe even add it to my presentation. So I'm sure everyone is aware of this, that guns are now the leading cause of death for kids. What a sad statistic. So let's start at the beginning. The Second Amendment, pretty simple. It just says a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The reason this was written is because the founders did not want a standing army, because they had in their previous experience had seen standing armies used against the citizens. But they knew that they might have to be ready in case they were attacked. So they wanted private citizens to have weapons. And at that time, if you had a weapon, you were supposed to let the government know. You're supposed to be registered with the government. So here, there's nothing in this amendment that supports an individual's right to carry firearms in public for self-protection. However, that all changed in 2008 with the Heller District of Columbia versus Heller, but it was changed to you could have a weapon for self-defense within the home. As you know, that has been expanded. This is like the water drip theory that these people follow. They take one small step. Once they accomplish that, they take another step, and they keep moving us to a place that we really don't want to be. So this is an example of it. The Illinois State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin is the person who's in charge of the Illinois or the New York State Police. These guys were upset because they wanted a concealed carry permit in New York, but they had to show cause, and they saying showing cause was not something that the Second Amendment required. So they sued. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and unfortunately, the Supreme Court, with the justices that are there, they voted 6-3 to say the New York law requiring to show cause to get a concealed carry permit was unconstitutional. Our concern here in Illinois is this could lead to us being our FOID requirement, our firearms owner identification, also being challenged. So, and another thing I want to point out, I'll make this presentation available. Susan, I'll send this to you I have links throughout this presentation that if you're interested in any subject on any page, you can click on these links and go right to the source of this information. So Highland Park, we don't have a gun problem, right? Well, we all know what happened on July 4th. And when I canvass, when I do tabling, what I hear from people in the suburbs is we don't have a gun problem. And I have to say, we don't have a gun problem until we have a problem. And that's what Highland Park is facing. Okay. And it's just commonplace. And what this Highland Park resident says, and this is what I think we're all facing. There's really no safe place anymore. Now there's some pictures in here that some of you may be upset with, but I'll show them quickly right at the end. This is a post from a young lady who was at the shooting. She's 18 years old. Okay. She said she was in Florida when that Pulse nightclub was shot up with a semi-automatic rifle. 2017, she was in Las Vegas when that mass shooting happened. So she said, now she was shot, and I'll show you what this looks like, and this may be upsetting to some people. She said some people were calling her a crisis actor, saying she was pretending she was shot, that the blood on my face and my shirt running down my pants was makeup. The truth is, it was real. It was ultra real, just like the gun problems. So I'll go through these quickly. There's her picture. There's after she got stitched up. It's real. This is real. So here's the Uvalde thing. We can change gun violence, but we have to get to the issue is weak gun laws. And I've got some slides later on that we'll talk about how we can actually do this. Uvalde was a 212th mass shooting. So this is before Highland Park. There's more. I haven't updated it, but Uvalde was a 212th mass shooting. Now, I also want to point this out. Disinformation. There's misinformation and there's disinformation. Misinformation is a mistake. Somebody just mistakenly states something that's not true. Disinformation is when an organization or a person purposely puts information out that is incorrect in order to accomplish a goal. That's what the gun lobby does. The other thing that they claim is gun-free zones like schools are magnets for shooters because they know nobody in there has a gun. So that's why they want to arm teachers. Well, that doesn't work either. And this article was written by the daughter who was murdered in Aurora theater shooting. But what she said is several people in the theater who had handguns, but they were concerned about using them in the dark and the chaos because they weren't sure that they could shoot the killer. I will tell you, my brother-in-law is a former Lombard policeman who does have a concealed carry permit. And he said if he was ever in one of these situations, he would never pull his gun out because the police coming in wouldn't know that he was not the shooter. So just think about that kind of logic. So the daughter she was killed in the 2012 Aurora, Colorado shooting. So mass shooting, there is a definition. Here's one from Wikipedia and one from Everytown. It's 4 or more people shot and killed, not including the shooter. Mass shootings burden the healthcare systems. This is a huge cost and something I think for us trying to get gun laws passed. What our pitch has been is we need to do this to save lives for kids, for people. The people who are generally against passing gun laws are really more concerned about finances. And if we would show them what the cost to us as taxpayers, to us as a nation, I think they would be shocked. Maybe that's another tack that we can take. But here, the Las Vegas shooting estimated to cost $600 million. Okay, gun violence in Illinois is estimated to cost about $10.6 billion a year of which almost 700 million is paid by taxpayers. So if you want to save money in taxes, let's get gun violence under control. Illinois alone could save $668 million a year. Okay, it's an epidemic. This is from Everytown, that annually, this is nationally, that they're estimating that the total cost, including medical, lost wages, et cetera, $557 billion a year. And she says this is a very conservative estimate. It covers measurable costs. It doesn't cover things like the trauma of children who don't want to return to school, impact on businesses, et cetera, that kind of thing. But this was basically an article that I pulled out from after the top shooting in Buffalo, New York. The hidden cost. Here's another hidden cost. So this is what's great about this thing. This is now coming from a different group, Harvard Medical School, published in the Annals of the Internal Medicine. So there's different groups. It's not just gun groups that are looking into this. There's other groups that we can depend on. Gunshot survivors average a cost. These are the survivors. A cost of almost $2,500 in healthcare spending per month. How many of us could afford an extra $2,500 per month as a gun? Not many. And that comes out to be about $2.5 billion a year if there's 85,000 people who survive firearm injuries. This is just a chart where all the mass shootings have happened. I'm not going to dwell on this at this point, but here, Illinois has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. And this comes from WBEZ. Despite the strict measures, Illinois does allow the purchase of so-called assault rifles, including the AR-15 style. The Illinois Constitution lays out the right for Illinois citizens to keep and bear arms. Giffords Law Center says consistently, Illinois courts have consistently found that the right does not prevent the state or individual municipalities from imposing gun restrictions or regulations. However, Illinois also prohibits anybody younger than 21 from purchasing or possessing a firearm unless someone is sponsored by an eligible adult. It's like signing for a loan. You say my 14-year-old wants to get a FOID card, I will sign for him. Okay, but there is an Illinois gun permit law that actually restricts municipalities from banning assault rifles. Now, I know Naperville is working on this. I know Hanover Park is working on this. My hope is that those municipalities will be successful and we will be able to send a clear message to the legislators down in Springfield. Just for some information too, the Lake County Board voted a couple days ago, I think a 16-5 to support the assault weapons ban law that's been proposed for the state of Illinois. Now, this is part of the strategy of the gun people. What they want to do is challenge each of these individual occurrences and get them into court. Once they get them into court, they then want to get them to the Supreme Court. Now, the definition of an assault weapon, there is no clear definition, but it usually includes something that says semi-automatic firearm, detachable magazine, pistol grip. I'll show you a picture later how assault rifles are being turned into assault pistols, which is scary. So now the now defunct federal assault weapons ban was passed in 1994. In general, assault weapons are semi-automatic firearms with large magazines. So here is the picture. So here is an AR-15. Okay, this is the active part right here in the middle, which is AR platform. That's the function. Here's the magazine. This is the firing mechanism. Of course, here's the trigger. What they do is you can buy these and they put on a shorter barrel. And then you can remove the stock and put on a shorter stock. And it says it's once you do this, it's now considered a pistol. It's kind of like then taking a shotgun and making a sawed-off shotgun. So these are not illegal yet, but they should be. Okay. So every time, this is another cost issue. Every time a trigger is pulled in DC, the city pays about $1.5 million in response. This is for the police, the ambulance, all the law enforcement, searches for the perpetrators, the jail. There's all the costs. This is just a cost to the city. Each step costs the taxpayers thousands of dollars, and then the cycle repeats. It doesn't change. America has more guns than any other country. You probably already know that, and you've heard that. If more guns make us safer, then we would be the safest country in the world, which clearly we are not. The first step is to understand the scale. Is that we have over 300 million guns. I think it's much more than that at this point. Roughly one for every citizen. The other extreme is a country like Japan, where there's one gun per every 100 people. I can tell you, I worked with a fellow who was from Japan, came here for a couple of year training, got interested in guns, bought a gun. He could not carry it back to Japan. He had to ship it back to a gun range. He has to keep the gun at the gun range. He cannot keep it in his home. And when he goes to the gun range, he has to buy his ammunition there. If he buys 50 rounds, he has to turn in a total of 50 spent cartridges and unused cartridges at the end of the day in order for him to leave the facility. So here's a picture, guns per 100 people. The United States way over everybody, and then Canada's next, and of course Japan's way down here at the bottom. Gun murders per 100,000. United States again leads the pack. Japan's way down. Now, you know, per 100,000 people, 10 deaths per year basically turns into a zero when you're charting something like that. But wouldn't it be nice if we could get to that kind of a goal? Okay, now here we have a model for regulating guns, and it's automobiles. So what do we hear? Gun enthusiasts often protest cars kill about as many people as guns, but we don't ban them. No, but automobiles actually are a model for public health, and this author is suggesting we don't ban cars, but we regulate them, and we limit access to them so as to reduce the death they may cause. This has been spectacularly successful. Okay, here is 1947 on the left, all the way down to now. It's starting to come back up, this is the pandemic years. So it started to come back up during the pandemic years. But you can see, because we started to regulate automobiles, we've significantly reduced automobile deaths. We can do the same thing if we would step up and actually regulate guns like we regulate cars. Now, this site is, I love this site. They update this daily. It's gunviolencearchive.org. You can go to it. They put in the statistics. They update this daily. Like I said, these are the numbers as of August 6th, which was Sunday. I updated this chart, but this is for the nation. So number of homicides. This is up as of August 6th. Okay, so you can just go down here. 399 mass shootings. 399 mass shootings are already this year, just by August 6th. You can click the link above to see how all these numbers have changed since August 6th. Typically, suicides are more than the homicides. However, in Illinois, our suicide rate is lower because our homicide rate is higher. So this is just a chart showing suicide rates across the U.S. Now, Illinois is in the low area here, but what it says is here The variation in suicide rates is largely driven by a variation in rates of firearm suicide and not non-firearm suicide. So suicide is a long-term solution to a short-term problem. If you can find the kid, the adult who's having problems, their gun owner, we'll talk about the firearms restraining order a little bit later, but you can save them. You can prevent them from suicide. You can prevent them from shooting somebody else. Suicide rates in this population in kids and adolescents are 4 times higher than kids who live in homes without guns. So if there's a gun in the home, chances are 4 times higher that that kid or adolescent will use that gun to end their life. In the past decade, 40% of suicides committed by kids and teens involve guns. 9 out of 10 of the suicides with guns that the victims accessed at their own home are from that of a relative. There's a myth that gun suicide is not more lethal than other means. I don't know how anybody could believe that. Fact is, the attempted suicide by firearms have an 82.5% fatality rate. I've seen numbers that are higher than that. The fatality rate for all suicide attempts, including gun suicides, is 4%. So 70% of suicide survivors who attempt suicide and survive, they never attempt suicide again. So if you can get them past that one short-term problem, you've saved somebody. And here's a place where you can get help. Okay, so anybody guess what state had the most gun sales in 2021? Here's the answer. It's us. We were second. We were topped Kentucky. Now we only have 4% of the U.S. population, but in 2021 we had 27% of the gun sales throughout the first 6 months of 2021. Second place was Kentucky. That's not something that we should be proud of. Okay, no state has seen more background checks than Illinois. So states with the most background checks in 2021, of course, Illinois, because we are #1 in gun sales. Kentucky is second, Texas, Indiana, and Florida. Why are we in front of all of these states with lax gun laws? So I'm just going to go again, just kind of go through this quickly. These are cities with the homicide rate. It would be nice to know why New York is so much lower than Chicago. With a city of 8.5 million people, their homicide rate is 5.5 per 100,000. Chicago is 28.5, so 5 times greater. But Chicago is continually blamed as being a city which is, high in gun deaths. Chicago is not even in the top 10. So here's the top 10 gun deaths for 2021. Glad we're not on that. This is just a chart from that gun violence archive, and it's kind of they put a red dot where there's a high number of gun deaths. Okay, and you can see the cluster in the Chicago area. This is the St. Louis area, and then throughout the middle part of Illinois. Okay. Another thing that we hear when we try to get a gun bill passed in Springfield is that the downstate legislators basically say, we don't have a gun problem downstate. That's a Chicago problem. Well, I've collected these over the last couple of months. Here's the Decatur police chief saying he wants action. He has a problem. Peoria has a problem. Rockford has a problem. Carbondale has a problem. Champaign has a problem. And then the International Association of Chiefs of Police are saying, please do something. So we're making headway. To get the International Association of Chiefs of Police on board is a huge step. Okay, you've all heard about ghost guns. The good news is Illinois banned ghost guns. There's a law against ghost guns. It's the fastest growing threat to gun safety. Because they can be bought in kit form on the internet with no background checks, no questions asked, weapon of choice for criminals and gun traffickers and kids. Now, here's a myth. The ATF and the federal government are doing all they can to regulate and stop the proliferation of gun laws. Unfortunately, it's up to state legislators to do this. So this is a chart that I grabbed before Illinois passed the ghost gun ban. So I've added, it was 9 states, now 10 states, and pointing to Illinois here. So what is a ghost gun? Gun made from kit of purchased parts. The finished gun is not serialized, not registered anywhere. Kids, felons, domestic abusers can purchase these kits online. It's illegal for them to possess a firearm, but since it's not registered, nobody knows they have it. So you can click on this link to review the ghost gun bill or rule that the ATF was proposing. But between 2016 and 2020, over 23,000 unserialized firearms were recovered by law enforcement. This is across the United States. It's becoming much higher than that now. So what is a ghost gun? So what they do is you can buy, like this is the frame or receiver. This is a pistol with there's no active parts in it. So this can be, anybody can buy this. This is not an issue. This is a revolver with no active parts in it. This is from an assault weapon. And what they do is they buy this and then they go buy the components and assemble them into these, and they're then working guns. So when I first started this, I thought ghost guns were pistols. When I found this, I was shocked that these are assault weapons that are ghost guns. Now you can see up here, there's some pistol up here, but most of these things that were recovered in San Francisco are assault weapons. Now, this is something that happened in March. And again, this is, if you see something, say something. The reason that this happened is a kid brought a ghost gun in his backpack to school, and one of the kids either heard about it or saw it and told the administration. So the school resource officer here on the right confronted the student. The student then tried to shoot the school resource officer. The school resource officer then shot the student. These two guys were admitted to the hospital, didn't stay long, but the student was in the hospital for probably, I don't recall, but more than a couple days. I have a video here of the TV news reporting on this incident, if you want to watch that. Okay, so are school resource officers effective? Well, this was put in place by the Journal of Adolescent Health, and despite the financial costs and limited effectiveness, they found no evidence that the presence of a resource officer lessened the severity of a school. What they're saying, they didn't comment on the fact that it stopped school shootings, and it didn't lessen the severity if there was a shooting. So if you think about it, for a school resource officer to do anything because they have a firearm, if they're shooting in the school, that means the shooting has already started. That's too late. Somebody has already been shot. What we have to work on is keeping guns out of schools. And actually what we need to do is keep guns, just regulate guns much better. Assault weapons and mass shootings. Vast majority of death by guns is from handguns. However, as you guys know, the AK-47 and the AR-15 is a weapon of choice for mass shootings. This happened in California a few months ago. They had an assault weapons ban. It was challenged, like I was saying earlier. Their goal was to get it to the U.S. Supreme Court. It was overturned in California. They appealed. They won the appeal. The law was reinstated, and the plaintiff will probably request the Supreme Court to take the case, which is the goal of the gun lobby. They want to get things in front of the Supreme Court now that they know that they have a favorable Supreme Court. there are over 20 million assault weapons already in possession of U.S. gun owners. I just found out a couple of weeks ago, there is a company in Lake Zurich. They're complete machine shop. They make assault weapons. They're for order. They can't make them fast enough. They have more orders than they can. So that is a scary statistic when I found that out. You can consider the filibuster as a lethal weapon because it's preventing common sense gun laws from Senate debate. We may be able to get things passed in the House, but we can't get them through the Senate. Our two senators are totally on board with passing gun law, stricter gun laws. It's the senators in some of the other states that, of course, we don't have much of impact on. But that's where that problem is. So I thought I would explain to you what a bump stock is. So here is an AK-47. What they do is they remove the stock, okay, here, and then they add the bump stock, which is here, and you can see there's a little gap here. So what happens when the trigger is pulled, the weapon recoils into this space here. There's a spring in here that forces the mechanism forward. So the recoil forces this forward. If you continue to hold the trigger down, that's like pulling the trigger again, and it just cycles automatically. So these would declared to be illegal during Trump's administration. The ban took effect March 29th, 2019. Bump stock bans remain as appeals courts. So this is obviously being appealed everywhere. Now, this is another scary thing that I just found out about. Fully automatic weapons were expensive, collectible, and rarely used in crime. However, this new device called an auto sear, which can cost less than $20 online. So far, it's not illegal. They can be bought online from China. Shipping paperwork typically has erroneous description of the shipment's contents. It can fire 20 or more rounds per second. This is with a Glock hand pistol. 20 more rounds. Now, if you want to see what this can do, here's two videos that will demonstrate what an auto sear will do to a Glock handgun. The assault weapons ban in Illinois, HB 5522, was proposed initially by Representative Maura Hirschauer, January 28th this year. Typically, and what I hear is in election years, legislators they treat gun laws as the third rail. They don't want to touch it. However, June 6th, Margaret Croak, who's a rep in the Chicago area, she added herself as a sponsor. So we had two sponsors. However, after Highland Park, 56 representatives signed on as sponsors. So that means we now have 58 sponsors. We need 60 votes in the House to pass this. My information that I get is this will be passed. It may not be passed this year. There's talk about a special session. The special session was initially proposed to address reproductive rights. What we were trying to do is, if the special session was called, we wanted to consider the assault weapons ban. However, we have no input that the special session is going to be called. During the veto session, it requires a 3/5 majority in the House. That means we need to get the 72 votes in the House, and we would need to get the 36 votes in the Senate, whereas typically we'd only need 30 votes in the Senate. This bill may be held until the lame duck session, which would go back to a simple majority. Good news is our kids don't have to put up with active shooter drills anymore. If the school wants to do an active shooter drill, they can do it when the kids aren't there. So I'll just go through all this real quickly. I want to get to the next slide. Now, A group called Statista took a survey a couple of years ago of teachers, asking them, would you feel safer if your fellow teachers were armed? 20% of them said yes, they would feel safer. 22% said no change, about as safe as they are right now. 58%, the vast majority, said they would feel less safe. These people are right over here. My wife is a teacher. She's very concerned about this because she said teachers, and if there's a teacher on the call, you'll understand this. She says teachers don't remember where they left a coffee cup. Don't give them a handgun. This is so. In last year, as you may know, the Illinois Association of School Boards, IASB, had a resolution to ask the school boards in Illinois to approve their lobbying to arm teachers. It failed by a vote of 181 to 202. That's way too close. That's as if only 11 school boards had changed their vote, this would have passed. Now, not all school boards vote. There are over 800 school boards in the state of Illinois. Some of them don't even attend this meeting, which if you have a school board, find out if your school board is going. I don't know if this is going to be proposed again this year. I keep checking this website to see if this resolution booklet has been posted. It has not as of yesterday. So that's what I said. It has not been posted. I will keep checking that daily to see if that is on board. And if it is, one thing I want to ask that the league do is attend your school board meeting and request your school board to vote no. Vote no on arming school boards, school teachers. And it's not the teachers, it's anybody in the school. It's the administrators. It's the people that work in the office. It's the maintenance guys. It's, you know, it's the guy that cuts the grass, whatever. How many people do we really want carrying guns? No, actually, none of them. Arming teachers, mishandled guns are frequently mishandled. Arming teachers wouldn't decrease the risk, it would increase the risk of students. Again, this is by Difford's Law Center. Arming teachers is new risks. In fact, an armed teacher cannot, in a moment of extreme duress, confusion, be expected to transform an especially trained law enforcement officer. If you think about this, an AR-15 is a rifle. It's very accurate up to probably 100 yards. A pistol may be good to about 30 feet. So you want the teacher to try to shoot a shooter with an assault weapon with a pistol. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So let's talk about firearm safety in the homes. Hiding a gun is not enough. Kids are curious. They will find the gun. And I want to point out where this comes from. This is from the American Academy of Pediatrics. They are on board with this. So if you get pushback on this, if you're talking to your school board, one thing you can do is talk to your local Moms Demand Action. Ask them to do a Be Smart presentation, which is about safe gun storage. Scary statistic: when even young toddlers are capable of finding unlocked guns in the home, and they're strong enough to pull the trigger. So this is age of school shooters. Now, Illinois has a law that says if you have a firearm in your home, it's supposed to be secured. If the person in the home or likely to gain access to that weapon is less than 14 years old. Here's the plotting of age of school shooters, and you can see this doesn't address the problem. Our current law does not address the problem. The majority of school shooters are between 18 and 20. So what we need is the safe gun storage law to be moved up to less than 18. We had a bill proposed this year to change that, to change the 14 to 18, it got relegated to Rules Committee. Again, like I said, the legislators are very reluctant to touch gun bills in election years. Now, here's something that's happening at the national level. Ethan Song is his name. He was at a friend's house. The friends found a gun in their house. They were playing with it, and Ethan was shot and killed. His parents were very upset with it, obviously. He was in Connecticut. He took, the parents got one of the local legislators to write a bill called Ethan's Law. Connecticut got it passed. Their congressional representative has now taken this to the Congress in DC. But here's Ethan's, here's his dad, here's his mom, and here's Gabby Giffords. You can imagine what the parents are going through. So one of the things that happened this year is we had proposed appropriating $3.5 million for the Department of Public Health to be used for safe gun storage campaign. It was assigned the appropriations. As far as I know, it never made it out of there. It may have made it into the budget, the overall budget, but I don't have time to go through the budget and find it in there. So now this is what happened in, if you remember this, in Oxford, Michigan, some time ago, just a few months ago. There was a child that carried a gun in his backpack. He was brought in, the parents were brought in that morning. The parents insisted that the kids stay there. Nobody searched his backpack. He had a gun in there, and he then shot some of his classmates. But the district attorney, or the local attorney, is taking a different approach. They are charging the parents with negligence, which is something that is, again, a new tactic that we should consider. There was an incident in, I think it was Elk Grove Village. It was one of the villages over there in that area. We had a similar instance where two kids were playing. They found a gun. One of the kids was killed. The DuPage, it was in DuPage County. The DuPage County attorney decided to charge the kid who found the gun, rather than the parents who should have had it locked up. So there's a Child Safety Law Act of 2005 requires that every gun that's sold be accompanied by a secure gun safety device, such as cable lock. I'll show you what a cable lock looks like in the next slide. This is supposed to happen. However, there's no law requiring that the lock actually be used. And unfortunately, the only time we can find out when that gun isn't secured is when it's used, improperly used by a kid, either at school or committing suicide. So we can't go into homes and say, is your gun locked up? Can't do that. Okay. The Fed announces safe gun storage. This is it's nice, but it's not very helpful. What all it's saying is the federally firearms licensee, that's a gun dealer, that they have available for purchase a secure gun storage device. It doesn't say they have to buy it. It doesn't say they have to use it. It just says they have to have it available for purchase. So it's kind of it's a super small step. I'm glad to see we've done something, but I don't think it accomplishes much. So here's what's in the bipartisan gun safety bill that was passed earlier this year. Now, this article was written on June 24th. I think the bill was passed on June 23rd. $750 million to help states implement and run crisis intervention programs, closing the so-called boyfriend loophole. In other words, if say a female is dating somebody, never married, never lived together, just boyfriend, girlfriend, but she feels threatened because he has a gun. Well, she could not take out a firearms restraining order or do something about it, but this now take care of that. Requires more guns sellers to register as firearms licensees. There are a lot of gun dealers that just work out of their house. I told some people in Palatine like a year ago, I told them how many gun dealers that they had, and they were going, no, we only have 3. I said, no, you don't, because so many of these, there was like a dozen that were working out of their homes. So it will require a better background check for ages 18 to 21 if they want to buy a gun. And I don't know what these new statutes are, but straw trafficking is super critical. Increases funding for mental health programs. Okay, why do we need a national law requiring safe gun storage? Well, here, Illinois we actually have a law that requires it. It's hardly enforced, but you can see the states around us, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota. But the problem is Indiana, Kentucky, Missouri, all don't. So these guns can be picked up and trafficked into Illinois. Major milestone. This is something that we tried to get passed in Springfield this year. There's no better way to reach parents than through the schools. What the goal was on this bill was to put into the school handbook for parents that if you have a firearm, we're asking you to lock it up. So here's the gun bill. Is this safe gun storage campaign. The next bill that I'll talk about is the one I was just talking about for the schools. What this was asking the Department of Public Health to put together a campaign to educate the population in Illinois for safe gun storage. It's now law. It was passed. This was the bill that was for gun safety mandating schools include the information on safe gun storage in their handbooks. It was amended. It changed it to say, and this is unfortunate in my opinion, it amended it to say you can talk about safe gun storage when you talk about safety programs such as driving, don't drink and drive and things like that. You may talk about safe gun storage. It was not mandated, so they totally watered it down. We banned ghost guns. That was a huge step. Firearm safety protect. This was the law to increase that age from 14 to 18. It was sent to the Rules Committee and never got out. Firearm safety, this is federal, proposed by Robin Kelly, to remove the exclusion. Now, firearms are the only consumer product where you can't hold the manufacturer responsible for death or injury caused by their product. Because guns, that's all guns are made for, is to cause death and injury. There's a project called Project Child Safe. It's sponsored by the National Sports Shooting Foundation. They're a little bit like the NRA, only not quite as radical, but this is a good program. And let me explain it to you. They give away free firearm safety kits to communities across the United States. They don't give them to individuals, they give them to police departments. So you have to find out, does your police department distribute free gun locks? They can get free gun locks from this program and give them out. You can check here at Project Child Safe. You can check to see if your community is listed. If it's listed, call your police department, ask them if they have gun locks. I called mine about a year ago and found out they didn't have any gun locks left. And the administrator said, "Oh, this is a problem. I'm gonna drop us out of this." Well, I went to a village board meeting I talked I know the police chief attends those meetings. I talked to him after the meeting, and he was like, "Oh no, we're not going to drop out of that. We give these gun locks away. We have them at our tabling events." And I said, "Well, you need to talk to your administrator." So again, you need to know what's going on in your community. If your town is not listed, contact them. It doesn't cost them anything to be listed on this registry. Now, these are what cable locks look like. So here are cable locks that go through the gun. Here's a rifle. It makes it so you can't use it. This is a biometric lock on a pistol. So here's where the fingerprint would be detected. However, the cable locks can be defeated with a cutting tool. Better yet, use a biometric gun safe. You can buy these at this price may have changed. This is about 6 months old, but I showed this to some people, and they said, "Well, the problem with this is if somebody breaking into the house knows that this is a gun safe, they'll just pick it up and walk out with the guns." So they said you have to bolt this to your nightstand. Well, okay, I understand that, but having this is one good step to keep kids from accessing firearms. Smart guns. This is something that has been around for years. It's becoming something that people are saying it might be a good idea. Officer-involved shootings are up in states that have dropped concealed carry permit requirements. And this is done by the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. So again, another non-gun violence group studying the gun violence issue. "25 states did not require civilians to have a permit to carry a concealed firearm. Another 17 states require local law enforcement to issue." Okay, so luckily Illinois has a FOID card, which is the firearms owner identification. If you want to do concealed carry, you have to have a FOID card, you have to reapply, and you have to supply fingerprints. If you remember the shooting that was in Aurora a few years ago at the Pratt Manufacturing Company, that shooter came from another state. He had a felony conviction, but when he came to Illinois, he applied for a FOID card. It did not require him to disclose that he was a convicted felon. So he got his FOID card. When he then applied for his concealed carry permit, he had to supply his fingerprints. At that point, the state found out that he was a convicted felon, and all they did at that time was they would write these people who had lost their FOID card, had their FOID card revoked. The state police would just write them a letter that said, "Turn in your FOID card and your firearms to local police." No follow-up, nothing. So he still had his FOID card, still could go in and buy ammunition, which he did. That's the reason that a couple of years ago we were sponsoring or supporting a proposal called "Fix the FOID Bill." There were a lot of legislators that did not want fingerprinting included. So we got some things passed, but the bill that was eventually passed did not include fingerprinting. I'm hoping that we can come back with a bill next year that will include fingerprinting. Now, I love this. If universal background checks and red flag laws create an insurmountable barrier to you owning a firearm, then you are the person we are worried about. Here we asked. This was a news report. We asked every senator what action should be taken on guns. Here's what one senator, Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. She said, "We must take meaningful steps to protect our children by enhancing physical security of schools." In other words, let's kind of turn them into a prison. let's put them on lockdown. Let's just lock all the doors. There's roughly $100 billion sitting in the elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund that can be used for this purpose. So in other words, because we can't control guns as taxpayers, we can spend all this money to put all this security in schools to keep people with guns out of the schools, which is not really addressing the problem. The problem is guns. And what I hear too is guns don't kill people, people kill people. Actually, what it is people with guns kill people. That's how that NRA needs to be revised. What they're saying is people with prior military and law enforcement should be allowed to carry firearms. I can tell you, after spending 6 years in the National Guard, I am no more qualified to carry a firearm around in schools and kids. This is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense. Military experience does not qualify somebody to carry a firearm in schools. Mental health must be taken seriously. We should improve access. I would like to ask Marshall Blackburn, what have you done? Have you proposed a bill to improve this? This is a nice statement, but if there's no action behind it, it's kind of a nice fluffy statement. This happened in Crown Point. There's gun shows that happen in Indiana. So the federal government did a sting. This fellow who owns the company that puts on the gun show said he wasn't aware of an undercover police operation, but had no problem with it. He wants to run a legitimate, gun show. They've been criticized. I don't know if you all know what a straw purchase is. A straw purchase is when somebody who is legally entitled to purchase a gun goes into a gun store or a gun show and legally buys a gun, passes the background check, walks out and sells the gun to someone who is not legally entitled to have a gun. That's a straw purchase. So, source of crime guns, this is in 2021. I have not been able to find any data for 2021. This is for 2020. So, source of crime guns recovered in Illinois from Illinois gun dealers, almost 6,000 from Illinois gun dealers. Now, that should be something we can control. What I hear all the time is we have to control the guns coming from Indiana. Illinois gun dealers have almost 3 times as many guns as Indiana. And so I come from a manufacturing background. When I look at something like this, I go, what I want to solve is the biggest problem contributing to my quality, and that would be solving the Illinois issue first. Again, we know Indiana is a major source. 37% of the guns recovered in Illinois come from Illinois gun dealers. We can't control the gun dealers in Indiana, but we can control the Illinois gun dealers. Top cities for recovered firearms is Chicago. Now, again, these cities are throughout the state. We should be able to get legislators from these areas to support gun safety laws. You can't sue a gun manufacturer. This is something, it's called the Placa Law. Like I said earlier, you can't sue a gun manufacturer for any death or injury caused by their product. It's the only consumer product that's like that. The Sandy Hook, 9 families sued. They won because they sued for deceptive marketing, and they're now taking this to other states. And remember, yard darts were outlawed in 1988 after 3 deaths. Violence against women, 5 times more likely. Every month, an average of 57 women are shot and killed by their intimate partner. Nearly 1 million women alive today are reported being shot or shot at. So here's EPRO laws, Extreme Risk Protection Order. We call it the Firearms Protection Order. We call it FRO law in Illinois. But you can see what is happening is more states are signing on. And what we find is with federal law, the more states that sign on to something, at some point, Washington DC goes, oh, maybe we should pass a federal law. But this is important to get these state laws passed. Violence against women was passed earlier this year, well, actually reinstated, reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act, included a massive measure of $1.5 trillion to fund, or it was included in that budget bill. The Violence Against Women Act was bipartisan. Okay, so yeah, so here's it was included in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2022. Again, if you want to find out more, like I said, I have links throughout this presentation. I'm going to send this to you guys. You can click on all these links and just find out more. So what can we do? First two actions recommended by every town is strengthen state laws, focusing on implementation and enforcing of existing state firearms law. In 2018, we passed the firearms restraining order. After it was implemented, we found that there were some holes in it. Denny Stoneback passed a law last year that updated this with HB 1092. If you want to find out more about this, you can go to Speak for Safety, which is an organization that was starting to promote this in 2018. Okay, now I put this together. So a FRO is different from an order of protection. You may need both. Very different. Expands the class of, this is what happened with 1092. Expands the class of people who will be able to petition. So what they had, what was left out was ex-spouses or somebody that had never, maybe had a child together, considered a family, never married, maybe never even lived together. Now that's covered. The female in this instance can now request this firearm restraining order. The added ammunition and gun points can now be called out for removal. Increase the Illinois Department of Public Health to promote public awareness of FRO. So now here's how to fire a FRO order in Cook County. I could not find anything on the DuPage Sheriff's Office, DuPage County Clerk's Office, the Will County Sheriff's Office, the Will County Clerk's Office on how to file a firearms restraining order. This is from the Cook County Sheriff's Office. I don't know if you can see the link down here at the bottom, but this is from the Cook County Sheriff's Office. Here's the steps that you have to go through. But it's on a website. And if you live in a county, if you cannot find the information on one of your county websites on how to file a firearms restraining order, you should talk to your county board and ask them to consider putting that information on the county website. This video gun myths, it's something, it's interesting thing to watch. Again, just click, I'm not going to try and show it now. Here's a video of a father talking about asking his kids, he had a fourth grader and a kindergartner, how was your day? And the fourth grader is talking about, oh, we had an active shooter drill. Listen to him talk about how upset his kids were. Excuse me. And then this talks about a friend's suicide. This guy says the hardest thing he had to do after the suicide was take a shower. Watch this video. It will grasp you. It will take you. It just, some links to the Joyce Foundation. Joyce Foundation does studies on gun violence. You can click on this link. It'll take you to the website. Now, does this make sense? If you want to go fishing, you got to get a permit. If you want to buy AR-15, oh, you need a FOID card, but other than that, you don't need it. My conclusion, my request, Schedule a GVP presentation for your organization. Use these websites. We have elections coming up. Elections matter. Voting matters. Here's two websites that are supported by the league. Vote 411 and justfacts.votesmart. Candidate forms, you're going to have candidate forms. Be sure to have gun questions prepared. Do you support the assault weapons ban? Do you support arming school teachers? You know, things like that. Yesterday was the first day that you could request vote by mail ballots in Cook County. I think that's a state law. So if you don't do vote by mail ballot, it's a very easy way to get your ballot and take care of it. You can also request to be put on a permanent vote by mail ballot list, which says you don't have to request your vote by mail ballot for every election. You'll automatically get a vote by mail ballot in the mail. As I said earlier, schedule a BSmart presentation with your local moms group. Ask your members to join the League of Women Voters GVP Google email group. I use this to send occasional information about relevant GVP issues, especially when we have to file witness slips. That is important. Just so you know, witness slips, it's not so much opposed, support opposed. It's the number of witness slips filed. If they see something that has like 5 in support of, 10 against, that will probably not ever get out of committee. But if they say something with like 100 supporting and maybe 500 against, that will probably get out of committee because they know there's interest from the citizens to act on that. I use it for witness slips, like I said. A TFA can take weeks for approval. So I generally don't use time for action. Typically, when we find out about witness slips, we have typically 24 hours or less, sometimes 2 days, but it's something when I send it out, I ask that everybody act on it when you get it. Okay, so if you want to join this, send me an email. Here's my email address again, but just put in the subject line GVP Google group so I can find it, and I will get you added to that group. I appreciate it.